glad you're with us on Conquering Retirement. Brad Johansen alongside Peter Hanson, Derek Huot of Northern Alliance Financial. Gentlemen, how are we today?
Great. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's always fun. Got a lot to cover today, as usual.
Let's fill some people in. I mean, the idea is educating, and for a lot of people, I don't know, doesn't cut it with any of the government rules. If you don't know, it could cost you. So let's go into some of the potentially costly mistakes that people have, especially with IRAs going into this. The common IRA mistakes probably is not understanding. I'll go back to Secure Act 2.0 in 2022. What's the most common thing that people make a mistake on in not knowing what's going on with this new Secure Act?
Well, you know, there are I think some pros and some cons to that act. And so the pros for some folks is required minimum distributions. The age for required minimum distributions went from, it used to be the year after you turn 70 and a half, which is obviously a confusing metric or way to...
70 and a half was a problem.
Yeah.
So they go, okay, we're going to change it. We'll move it to 73.
That's exactly it. And so 73 now, it's actually going to be going to 75 in 2033. So that's going to be where it is now, is 75. So anyone in 2033 that is turning 75, that's when you'll have to take it then. So there's some leeway there as far as when you have to take that. There's more time. One of the things that they did do was a fairly big tax grab, and it's the elimination of the stretch IRA.
All right, explain that.
So what that means is if you inherit a non-spousal IRA, pre-tax account, so uncle, aunt, anyone that's not a spouse, typically what you could do is, because you are required to take distributions out of it, you could take those based on your life expectancy. So, you know, technically you could stretch that out. For example, you know, I could have a nephew that inherits my account. My nephew could be 20 years old. His life expectancy is much longer. So he's going to take required minimum distributions based off of his life expectancy. And then maybe if it's a large enough account, he can stretch that out, and then someone else inherits it and they can stretch that out. That's gone.
Not the case anymore.
No, you've got 10 years. 10 years to take everything out. And for some people, that's a big problem. Because if you inherit a sizable account, non-spousal again, but if you inherit a sizable non-spousal account, you got to take it all out in 10 years. Now, they don't care when you take it out, but it all needs to be out in 10 years. And you really should plan, because I'm sure the government would rather you take it all out in one big lump sum. You're going to push yourself into a higher tax bracket, and you're going to pay more taxes on it. That would be the way to do it if you didn't plan. But if you plan, we could incrementally take out withdrawals over a 10-year period. Make sure we keep you within a good tax bracket so you're not paying unnecessary taxes.
There are people who come in and say, you know what, I've inherited this. Well, when did you inherit this? Oh, my dad died like about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Have you done anything with the RMDs? What do you mean the RMDs? I just inherited this money. I just haven't done anything with it. This can, as you mentioned, can put people in real serious tax situation if you didn't know what you were going to do, and now 10 years in, you've got to do it all.
Yeah, and you know, we're not CPAs, we're not tax accountants, but when we run, and if somebody does run into trouble, we have connections with CPAs to come in and help. We have connections with estate planning firms. So not that we would have all of the answers, but we can see when somebody's running into trouble. And that's another part about being a holistic planning firm, is that if we're not able to help you with what it is that you need to have accomplished, we're going to bring other parties in. We have multiple offices, and that would be a situation, for example, with a Roth conversion. We're going to get a stamp of approval from a CPA before we do a Roth conversion.
Well, as we said, the government doesn't care about your not knowing. If you make a mistake, it could be costly. What's the costly mistake of not, as I said, taking that RMD, even if it was inherited kind of thing?
Yeah, so, and to piggyback off your question about the inherited 10 years ago, one thing for the viewers watching is if you inherited something 10 years ago, that was before the Secure Act went in, so you can still stretch that out. You're going to have to take required minimum distributions. But in your situation you gave, say 10 years from now, someone says that was after the Secure Act 2.0, the stretch IRA is gone.
Good to know.
You're going to be in some trouble there. But to go back to your original question, the RMDs are a specific requirement for pre-tax accounts. And what that means is required minimum distribution. you've got to start taking some money out of these accounts. As we talked about before, that age when you have to start taking money out is 73. It's going to be going up to 75. But what the government does, what the IRS does, is they look at your life expectancy. They say, okay, they're going to live this long. So they're going to come up with a percentage each year, and they're going to take that out of whatever the value of your account was in the previous year on December 31st. So what happens if you don't do it? Well, you're going to have to pay a 25% penalty on what you were supposed to take out. So let's just say, for example, you're supposed to take out 20 grand. You're going to have to take out, 20 grand, you're going to have to be taking a $5,000 penalty, and you're paying taxes on that as well. So you really want to get that taken care of, and you want to make sure that comes out in time. And they don't care if you, let's say, for example, November, you went to the hospital. And you maybe had some condition and you were in there longer than you expected, and you were in there until January. They don't care. You should have taken it out. Now, you can get an exception and potentially get that dropped down to 10%. But if they do that for you, they're not going to do it again. And it's a lot of hoops to jump through to do it. So you just want to make sure you do this ahead of time. Don't wait till the last minute to take out your required minimum distribution.
Is there something that we should talk about with Roth conversions in doing this that leads into potentially saving some of the mistakes tax-wise with this? Because for a lot of people, learning about Roths right now is a new thing. I didn't realize that I could put something in there. That wasn't an option for me before. Or, again, I didn't know about this. Are Roths popular as we're moving into this area?
They should be more popular than they are, but people are coming in with the understanding that, somebody said you should look at Roth, but they don't know why. So they're coming in and asking us, why should I have a Roth as part of my portfolio? Well, I'm going to say you can't avoid taxes. That's illegal, but you can certainly mitigate taxes. And that's where we come in. Our whole job is to mitigate your tax burden in retirement. By converting some IRA monies or some pre-tax monies to Roth, what you're doing is you can say, I know I'm going to have to eventually pay taxes on these dollars. I'm going to pay it now. But I also know that I'm not going to have to pay taxes on the growth, and I'm not going to have to pay taxes on the income that I receive from that Roth later in life. So you kind of bite the bullet, and you pay the taxes now. We don't know where taxes are going to go up, but do you think they're going to go down? I'm pretty sure they're not going to. This government's been spending an awful lot of money. They're going to have to pay for that somehow. Their taxes are probably going to be going up at some point.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had a client that, because when you do these sort of Roth conversions, you want to make sure that you're smart about doing it. So, I mean, I know Pete had talked about before about a client he had that asked before he came on board if he could redo it. He didn't realize that he was going to have to pay all the taxes in the year he did it. So you want to make sure you do it incrementally and you plan. I had a client that during COVID, his business took some pretty heavy losses. And so during that time, he converted $100,000, which is a lot of money to convert in 1 year. And I wouldn't recommend that, but his business took heavy losses. He was able to do the conversion, and that income didn't push him up because the losses in the business, it just sort of kind of put him where he would have normally been. So now, because things have grown, he's got well over 100 sitting in a Roth chassis, and every year we're converting more. And so those are monies that he's never going to have to pay taxes on again. He's already taken that out of the way. They've grown substantially.
You guys have talked about moving money into different buckets or different areas so that we have strategies now of where we take that money. This money that this business owner put into a Roth account now has moved into a space where you can put, if you want to say, the go-go juice on it in the investments, because this is the last money we're going to go for. This is what we're trying to create. Putting money into different spots where we know where we can get it if we need it. All of these things are planning for, when we talk about mistakes, all of these things are planning for the what if.
Absolutely. The gist of what we do is we're creating an income plan for folks. Now, you want to be able to draw consistent income. We want them to be able to draw consistent income regardless of what's happening in the market. By having different buckets of money,
yes,
different allocations, maybe something is fixed, which means regardless of what the market does, that balance does not does not drop. You want to have something invested in the market to get the good gains when it's coming. However, if you're drawing a consistent income, you would switch where you're drawing the income from based on what's happening in the market. So you have your green money. Now, the green money is invested in the market. You have your red money and you have your yellow money. Depending upon what's happening, you're able to draw the same amount of income, but from different buckets. Well, when the market's down, we're going to draw over here. When the market's up, we're going to draw over here. Because if the market's doing 20%, well, you can draw your 5 or 6% from over here. So this is what we're looking at doing. And a lot of people don't think of it that way. The same amount of money placed strategically in different positions allows them to have a consistent retirement.
It's trying to avoid some of the mistakes that you may not even know you're heading towards. So how about coming in for a complimentary review to go through your portfolio? As Peter and Derek talk about all the time, we'll do the complimentary X-ray so that we can see inside what's going on with your portfolio, the hidden fees that are there, and maybe some of the strategies that you haven't even thought about. Make the phone call to 877-241-7430 or scan the QR code to come in for a complimentary appointment. With that, Conquering Retirement, the book that Lance has put together to answer all of your questions that you have about your retirement. You only want to do this once. You want to do it the right way. So make the phone call, 877-241-7430. Scan the QR code. Come into the office. Let's put together a plan for you. We'll be right back.
Our team at Northern Alliance is very diverse in terms of the services that we offer.
We do take a team-based approach.
We carry multiple licenses so that clients can do everything within the Northern Alliance financial team.
If it has anything to do with retirement, that's what we specialize in.
Budget planning, tax considerations, Social Security strategies, risk management, long-term care, Medicare, health planning, as well as legal and estate planning.
We really are a one-stop shop.
There's Lance Gilman, Peter Hanson, Jeremy Barnard, myself. We do have a staff that is great.
In Maine, we have multiple locations to cover the vast array of the state.
You know, you can come in and have a conversation in person. And a lot of people are looking for these days. Things after COVID have changed to more Zoom, phone call sort of things. And we'll do those things, but we appreciate and would rather have you come in person and have a conversation face to face like this.
We're pretty approachable, and we're going to listen to you. We're going to try to determine what your needs, your aspirations, those goals are, and then we're going to do everything that we possibly can to help you meet those goals.
It's lighthearted, it's carefree. We laugh like crazy. An atmosphere that I don't think is common in a lot of other practices.
We were talking about how well the team is bonding together, how similarly we all think in that what we do, we want to actually make a difference.
Average, everyday people helping average, everyday people.
You know, we truly do put the client first.
Our mantra has been, when you take care of people, people take care of you.
Nice to have you with us on Conquering Retirement. Brad Johansen with Peter Hanson, Derek Huot, Northern Alliance Financial, and we're talking about some of the common mistakes that people have with their IRAs, with their 401ks. And if we move into this, we always talk about how many accounts we have. And maybe there's a mistake in our junk drawer theory of we've got a lot of stuff and trying to figure that out. Why is there a mistake in not knowing how many accounts we have or the amount of accounts we have out there that are inefficient?
Well, I would say, Brad, primarily because people don't have their finger on the pulse of those accounts. When you're spread out all over different custodians, former employer-sponsored plans, there's no way you're watching what's happening. There's no way that that money is being managed properly. Even if you were managing it yourself, you've got to go into this terminal and this site and this website to manage those accounts. You know, it's important to at least come up with some consolidation. You can still consolidate and diversify. When you consolidate, let's say 7 different accounts into one IRA, you can still have that IRA managed by multiple money managers, and this is what we're doing. But now at least you've got an overseer of what's happening with your accounts, where the whole goal when we invest assets in the market is to mitigate downside. That's the premise of what we're about, is mitigating downside, asset protection. We run workshops called asset preservation and asset protection. But you know, you want to have fingers on the pulse. So when you're spread out, no one's watching what's happening to your accounts.
I think a lot of folks, too, believe they're diversified because they have a 401k here, a 403b here.
Sure.
You know, another 401k here. Well, I'm diversified. Excuse me, I'm spread out. And they're spread out, but they're not diversified, because when we dig into each one, we run that portfolio analysis that we offer to our folks that are listening and watching today, we can uncover the fact that there are some unnecessary holdings that are overlapping. So they may think they're balanced, and they are balanced in each of these, but they have too much weight in a lot of different stocks and equities, and it's not really balanced like they think. And not to mention, it's being managed completely separately. Each mutual fund's doing its own thing. So there's nobody that's looking at everything as a big picture and planning that way. And that's a problem. May not be so much when you're younger, but when you're getting closer to retirement, it really does become a problem.
Let's go into the mistake of rolling over or not rolling over. What's the potential mistake of not moving 401ks or 403bs or 457s into IRAs? Is there a danger in doing that?
Well, I mean, the first mistake I could think of is, again, you're not managing it where it is. The options, if you want
somebody
to make
else
changes.
is doing it.
Yeah, well, somebody else is doing it. If it's being done at all, chances are they're in a target date 2035 fund, and that ebbs and flows with the market, regardless of because there's nobody at that 401k company is changing the holdings, other than mitigating risk slowly as time goes on. I mean, that's one of the big dangers.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, to keep in mind is that there are options, as far as consolidation goes. And for a lot of folks, it can be confusing as far as how they can do what's called a rollover. In fact, a lot of people don't even know what that is. And so what that really is it's taking money from your 401k, a pre-tax account, 403b, TSP, pre-tax accounts, employer accounts, and moving them into another pre-tax account called an IRA. Now, why would you do that? First of all, within the IRA, you can invest in anything. So if you're having someone manage things for you, that's obviously going to be beneficial. But even if you manage things yourself, you're going to find much more benefit going into the IRA because of the fact that in the 401k, you only have a certain amount of options. And some employers have more than others. But within the IRA, you can invest in anything. So you do a rollover. It's a non-taxable event. And we help folks do that. We'll call with them. We'll help them with the paperwork. We take care of that. We hold their hand along the way, make sure it's done properly, because you don't want to make any mistakes.
Because obviously, if you do it the wrong way, there is taxation implication for all of this. I want to talk about the potential of where we want our money to go in a rollover situation that I don't necessarily need it to, but becomes a problem because beneficiaries don't change or haven't been changed by the holder of the account, and move it over, and then suddenly a life event happens and they didn't realize that there was a problem. Have you run into any of that?
I have. And one example that happens, I've run into more than once, is where it's an old 401k, there's been a divorce, and the ex is still a beneficiary, not because the 401k holder wanted that, but because they just never went and changed it. It may have been from an older plan, an older employer. But more recently, I had a client that whose mother passed away. And I would say the family dynamics are not great within the family, and this didn't help. And what happened was the mother had never changed. Her and her son had a falling out.
Okay.
They were good now. They've been good for many years. But back when they had a falling out, she changed him off the beneficiary. And she updated her will and everything. All the kids were receiving stuff, but she forgot to go into the 401k plan and do that. And the other brother inherited it all, and it just caused a rift. Yeah, because it really wasn't supposed to be like that. Her will stated something differently, but that doesn't matter. What's on your 401k beneficiary or on any of your accounts, beneficiary designation, that's going to be where the money goes. So I don't care if you have a beneficiary designation that says so-and-so gets the money, and then 10 years later you put a will together and it's different. That doesn't matter. They're going to look at your beneficiary designation. So make sure those things are correct. It's an easy thing to fix.
Well, that's what you say, is trying to fix these things and make them simple. Because they are so complicated and coming in, there are a lot of things to check off the list. It's kind of what you do, and for a lot of people who are doing it themselves or doing it with advisors who say, I haven't spoken to this person for a couple of years, why is it so important for this to be part of the plan? Because you always emphasize the plan has to come together.
The plan has to come together. Part of the part of the making of that plan when people are bringing in their statements is we're checking beneficiary designations. And I would say probably once a week I'm finding somebody that is a beneficiary that doesn't belong there anymore. That's important. When people are bringing in their statements, like we would suggest, so that we can do the portfolio review, portfolio X-ray, we can look to see, does this person still entitled to this money if you pass away? And, oh, I didn't realize that was still like that. So that's part of the process. We have these triggers. At New Year's is a good period of time for us to start sending out notices to clients to say, hey, by the way, who wants to do this? But look at your beneficiary designations on your account that you currently have. And once in a while, someone will say, thanks for the reminder, because that would have been a drastic mistake. In Maine, we had a life insurance policy on one of our advisors. One of our advisors' clients had a life insurance policy, was married, had been divorced for 10 years, right? Never thought to ask about the beneficiary designation because the client never mentioned to the advisor on our team that life insurance policy actually existed. His ex-wife ended up getting $1 million, over $1 million, and the gentleman was remarried. His new wife was not very happy about that. And
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The beneficiary designation supersedes will, supersedes everything.
Yeah, ignorance is no longer an excuse when you're dealing with the finances and you're dealing with the rules that the government has laid in force. You need a plan. You need people with perspective that know the rules, that understand what you need, that know how the changes need to be made to make it work for you. So come in for a complimentary review. You have to make that phone call at 877-241-7430 or scan the QR code to be able to come in and put together a plan that works for you so that everything on the checklist, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted with people who have the perspective who've been doing it hundreds of times. Let's put together a plan for you to make all of those things correct. 877-241-7430. And we'll be right back.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
So glad you're with us on Conquering Retirement. Brad Johansen with Peter Hanson, Derek Huot, Northern Alliance Financial. Kind of talking about the common mistakes that people make. And many of us feel like we're the only ones that are stupid enough to do it this way. It's not the stupid factor. It's that the rules are so in-depth and so many of them, and that the rules constantly change, which is just a part of legislative risk. We're trying to help you through some of those mistakes. I want to go into the portfolios that we have, guys. Is there a mistake of not having a balanced portfolio? I'm commonly just putting it in. Why would that be considered a mistake of not having a balanced portfolio?
Well, we used that example before when a little bit a while ago about the fact that you could think you're balanced because you have balanced 401ks spread out, but that's not technically balanced because there's going to be a lot of overlap. And a lot of folks don't know what to look for. And so what we will typically do is invite them in to bring their statements so we can uncover these things. Not being balanced is not as much of a big deal when you are younger because your time horizon when you actually need to start taking money out from those accounts is further out. But it becomes a bigger deal as you're getting closer to retirement because I think everybody watching can understand that volatility these days is through the roof. I mean, it's swings each way, and we want to help our clients do things tactically to be able to control and limit the volatility. And you can't do that when you've got 4 401ks spread out, invested in the same balanced funds. It just doesn't work.
So going into retirement, and for a lot of people in accumulation phase, nothing beats the market. I want to stay in the market. I'm going to be in the market. It's the best place to be. And for a long run, through into 2025, the market was great. Mm-hmm. Everything was good. And when it feels great, everybody says, you know what, I'm going to stay here. Yep. I'm good. What's the danger of being in a volatile market now as things continue to change when your runway going into retirement is short?
Well, we know the market has more good years than bad years. That's why when you're young, it makes sense to be almost aggressive or to be aggressive because you can afford the downturn in the market because you're still working. Your time horizon before you retire is considerable. However, when the market does have a downturn, and it does, and it will, we know that as well, and you're approaching retirement, that can take a big, giant bite out of your portfolio. So having a balanced portfolio is important, but also making sure that you have, again, I'm going to promote the bucket strategy, having assets in different buckets. Wouldn't it be nice to have a certain chunk of your assets in a bucket where regardless of what happens in the market, you don't lose a dime? There's such things.
Zero floor strategies.
Zero floor, yep. And if you don't need that money right now, that's okay. If you're not using it right now, but all the better. When the market does well, you're still going to be getting, halfway decent gains in there. But it's nice to have that so that when the market does have a downturn and you're drawing income, you don't draw from the money that's invested in the market because that's on a little bit of a downturn. You draw from the bucket that you saved for a rainy day. We will have market downturns regardless. If you're 65, you can anticipate at least another 3 significant market downturns in your retirement. So to be 100% aggressive in the market is foolish and foolhardy. You're crossing your fingers and it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Which is what a lot of people do. They say, my runway's short, I got to get going.
Yep.
I got to chase some higher returns. And I've got to do that now without putting a plan together. That, as you said, becomes foolhardy for a lot of people walking in.
Yeah, that could work out really well for you, or it could not work out very well. I wouldn't want to take that chance.
It's a flip of the coin.
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is.
thing.
And the problem is you're getting closer to retirement, and you have a major market downturn, and you stay aggressive. The last thing you want to do is go from aggressive to conservative when you've just dropped considerably, because it's going to take you that much longer to get back. So you're better off planning now and taking care of these your holdings and maybe dialing it down a little bit.
We're short on time, but I want to bring up your zero floor strategy to talk about that, because a lot of people have been in variable annuities running this for a long time or got annuities 10 years ago. What you're talking about is something new, and the products, the solutions are better for people to mitigate that disaster that could be in front of them.
Yeah, get in front of somebody that's knowledgeable about annuities so that they can tell you the difference between a variable annuity, a fixed annuity, and a fixed indexed annuity. In my opinion, and most of the advisors on our team, a fixed index annuity is a beautiful product to have in your portfolio because it's got that zero floor. You're not going to lose any money when the market goes down. And if you bought annuities during low interest rate time periods, which was from 2015 all the way through 2020, and you have that annuity now, it may make sense to take a second look at it, called refinancing your retirement. We can talk about that another time.
Let's talk about it in the office. You have to make the phone call, 877-241-7430. Let's try and figure out what potential mistakes are out there, what pitfalls you may be facing as you head into retirement. Put together a complimentary plan for you. Thanks so much for joining us. We're grateful you spend the time here. Can't wait to see you in the office. We'll see you right here next time.